Okay, and we are live. So, hello to everyone that's watching out there. My name's Darren Fink, and I am with Transfiguring Adoption. Transfiguring Adoption exists to nurture and grow foster and adoptive families. We also say that we help foster and adoptive kiddos by giving a hoot about their caregivers. So, glad that you could join us tonight. The conversation and topic with our panel of experts tonight is going to be coping with being investigated. And we have been asked by several people to cover this topic, and I've got some great folks lined up here to talk to you about this. But before we get into that, I did want to say our little legal piece that we are not using this as medical, legal, or advice or intending to replace advice you're getting from your agency workers or therapists. We are merely just trying to be your neighbors and friends, trying to give you some more suggestions and just talk things out and help you out a little bit. So in layman's terms, please don't sue us. Our next panel that we're going to be having, if you want to save the date, is going to be an open forum Q&A with some experts and professionals, and that's going to be August 19th, also at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Appreciate everyone that's watching. Another thing that I would love for you to do is if you could go to the Transfiguring Adoption Facebook page or YouTube channel and subscribe to us or like us, that would be great. This will also be live on our YouTube channel after we're done. I think that's all the housekeeping I have. So without further ado, like I said, we're going to be talking about coping with being investigated. And I've got some great gals here that are going to be able to help you with your different questions and yeah, give some great suggestions. So let's start things off with, could you all briefly introduce yourself and tell us what you bring professionally to the discussion? And I will let anyone that wants to go first to go first.
All right, well, I can go first. My name is Shireen Fawcett, and I am a foster parent advocate, which means that I help foster parents when they're kind of in depth of an investigation, or if they have disputes with the department or maybe their agency, just kind of help guide them through certain processes.
Fantastic.
My name is Megan Posey, and I am a licensing and recruitment staff person at a private agency in East Tennessee, and I will often kind of help guide agency foster parents through the investigation process. I'm usually the one that lets them know that they're on on a freeze or what we call here in Tennessee an SIU because of the investigation.
And Rachel, that'll leave you.
All right, my name is Rachel Rothy. I work for a private provider agency also in East Tennessee, different from hers, but another one. And I am a caseworker that works in foster homes, and I also do home studies and a few other things, but I'm usually the person that's working with you guys, the foster parents, when things are going on, and I'm kind of on the ground for a lot of stuff.
Fantastic, you guys. And I really appreciate everyone being here. We actually had a couple other folks that they had some family emergencies and health issues that got to them last minute. So I want to really appreciate Rachel and Shreen for stepping in at the last minute. But like I said, all of these women have some great advice and are very seasoned in what they do. First question I have for you guys, and just so everyone knows that's watching also, if you're watching live with us, there's a Q&A panel that you can go ahead and ask your questions while we're talking, and we will get to your questions. You can also ask your questions by tweeting or posting them on Facebook to our Facebook page, and use the hashtag #TAdopt. That's T as in Tom, adopt. And I will be watching for those questions and get them to our panelists. So the first question that I have for you three is, all of you see caregivers in various stages of having the allegations brought against them, which is what we're talking about, coping with that investigation and the allegations being brought against them. Can you briefly describe the process you take with a caregiver, and what that looks like when they're being investigated? Like, what does it look like on your end when someone's being investigated?
From an agency standpoint, working with foster parents, handling their compliance needs and licensing needs, the way it works for us is I'm usually the one either letting them know or getting the agency notice that the home has to be put on freeze because there's an investigation for a variety of reasons. And I'm generally just kind of trying to lay out the process for them, try to give them some sense of normalcy to it. Even in training, I try to explain to our foster parents that often these days it's not if you go through an investigation, it's when. It's just kind of the sign of the times. And then just trying to explain to them in every step of the way how I can be available to them, what other advocates and individuals can be available to them to provide support. And then I actually myself will reach out to those other individuals and make sure that there's kind of a team surrounding that family, providing some insulation through the process. Generally, there's a lot more anticipation, about how awful it's going to be than is really there. So I try to break it down, simplify it as much as I can for them.
On my end, I'm considered a volunteer with the department. So I just assure the foster family that I am not on paid staff, and I help guide the foster family through any questions they may have about the investigation. Really give them preliminary because I don't know the accusations of why the investigation's even occurring. But it just kind of helped guide them through the process. I'm skilled in Department of Children's Services policies, and I'm skilled with the foster parent rights. So I can maybe give them some insight and some time frames that they're familiar with. And then I also can reach out to the department to see maybe if there's any any word of what the accusations or allegations may be, and help facilitate the foster parents because you can be used that the foster parents aren't familiar with, or just processes can be used, and so I just kind of help guide them and push them through it.
Very cool. Thank you.
Sorry, it took me a minute to get my microphone going. With my role as a caseworker, typically I'm going to be the person that's working directly with you once you've been notified. Usually I'll be the one helping out with the safety plan and things like that, and participating in the CFTMs with all the other workers involved with what's going on and all the steps that are taken to keep everybody safe and keep things flowing, and also keep the line of communication open to our adoption department, especially if there's an adoption going on or pertinent to the case, and checking the status of reopening the home and things like that.
Very cool. Thank you so much, you guys. Next question I have for you guys is, what are the common feelings or emotions that caregivers are going through when you meet them? So what are these parents thinking about, and what are you seeing when they come to you guys?
I think anxiety. A lot of allegations can come up for a lot of reasons, and foster parents usually they don't know why they're being investigated. They don't know what caused it or what was said. head, and it's kind of scary to have somebody investigated but not really know why, especially if you believe that you didn't do anything wrong.
Right. No, it can be. I would think that too, yeah. It'd be a very scary time, very high anxiety. What about Megan? What are you seeing when people are coming, when you're talking with them at first and letting them know they're being investigated?
I do often see foster parents experience anger, probably as a result of frustration and disappointment. I think they often feel like we're doing so much for these kids already. We're doing so much for this family and for the department to take good care of these kids. And they take an investigation very personally. They feel like it's an attack on their character or on how they parent or on their home. And, there's definitely kind of an emotional roller coaster that starts somewhere around there with anger and frustration and then generally kind of fear and sadness. And Shireen's exactly right. A lot of anxiety. What's going to happen? The unknown. Is this going to affect my biological family makeup or my already adopted kids? Stuff like that.
Rachel, do you have anything to add to that?
I think they summed it up pretty well. All of those emotions were ones that I were thinking of.
Is there anything that foster or adoptive parents can do to prevent an investigation, or is there something maybe preemptive they can do? Megan, you were talking about like they feel like it's an attack on their character. Is there anything preemptive that parents can do so that maybe it strengthens their moral character when it comes against them?
We encourage from the get-go for foster parents to be open books and very open and honest with the licensing staff, and then once they get placements with their caseworkers. We feel like that's a major liability protection from the get-go because that allows us to be able to work closely with them and feel confident in the environment that the kids are in. When you have any level of closed offness or secrecy in the home, it can be very hard for me as a licensing person to advocate for your home and to be able to speak very confidently that whatever the allegations are unlikely or should be unfounded. And then the other thing we do is talk a lot about documentation. Documentation is a foster parent's best friend. And along with that, communication with the caseworkers. Following all of the local DCS guidelines or DHS guidelines, whatever your local licensing agency is, being familiar with their rules and policies and understanding that what could be a basis for not following policy when we have a home out of compliance. We do our best to fill them in and educate them on ways that they need to stay in compliance. But if they aren't retaining that information or kind of pursuing understanding or knowledge of that information, it can be easy to put yourself in a position. But there are plenty of cases as well where the foster parents did and were doing everything right, and there still was an investigation. It wasn't a reflection of their parenting or their character. It was a situational thing. So that's something to keep in mind as well.
Shereen, what do you see when you're helping the parents once they're already being under investigation? Is there anything common that you're seeing that you would say, I keep seeing this, I wish parents would do X, Y, and Z so maybe this wouldn't happen in the future?
Yeah, I definitely think when foster parents don't reach out to their resources, they don't ask for help when they need it. That's a common one, because when emotions are high and you're stressed, and if you have a high need child, of course your environment's going to be stressed. And if you don't take a break, self-care, step back from the situation, an emotional. And so I really think that I'd like to see more foster parents utilize their resources and their help. It takes a community to raise these kids, not just us individually. But ultimately, like Megan said, there's really no way to prevent investigation from occurring. Like you said at the beginning, it's not when it, or it's basically when it happens. It's not that it's not going to happen. And so, if foster parents, if they follow policies, they're asking for breaks, and when they need one, it maybe alleviates some of the anxiety that they may have. But ultimately, I'd like to see foster parents, just ask for help, reach out to your support people, reach out to your friends, your foster family, as I call them. Reach out to them, let them help you.
What would you guys, a lot of times I'll talk with parents and they'll talk about a situation, they'll say that a lot of people just don't understand, they just don't get it. And sometimes, maybe I'm incorrect, but I tend to think that maybe with this situation, a lot of foster or adoptive parents are going to think that people don't understand what they're going through. They don't understand the investigation. They don't understand. And it is a feeling maybe of failure or embarrassment to them. What would you tell foster adoptive parents that are feeling those emotions, feeling like they need to seclude themselves because others don't understand?
I was encouraged.
Go ahead, Megan.
I was just thinking, I encourage my foster parents to put on their blinders. The system can be a big distraction from what people come in to do in foster care. And similarly to the blinders that you'll find on, horses pulling carts. They're trying to block out those distractions. Foster parents can get very distracted by things like investigations or disappointments in the court system, or with their local state systems, or with biofamily progress or lack of. So same with investigations. You came into this to help the child and to provide a good, safe home while they're with you, regardless of what happens when they leave this environment. So, try to put on your blinders and focus on that and do the best you can with that child. And like Shireen said, utilizing those resources and insulate yourself with kind of that foster family team so that you can kind of keep that focus.
I would also encourage to, of course, not like anything that would impede any investigation or anything, but reaching out to other foster families that you're close to and that you feel secure with, that you can talk to about your emotions and how you're feeling. I feel like we keep saying over and over again, it's not a if, it's a when, and other families also are feeling that also. And at least from what I've seen from networks of several foster families, like, everybody is more than willing to be there for one another and support one another during that time. And also, too, keeping in mind with all of our work with kids with trauma, we're always encouraging them to open up, and we're always encouraging them to take care of themselves and to not isolate themselves and all the things that they're taught in therapy, and reinforcing that. And it's important, I think, for foster families to also heed to that advice as well, and not just give that to the kids that they have in their homes, but also practice that themselves, so that way they're taken care of even when things are getting rough, because they don't have to shoulder this on their own. And I mean, I do agree, definitely reach out to your team especially, but I know sometimes even with that, we're workers, and that's not always the same as the kind of support that sometimes you might need, and it's okay to reach out to others and rely on those supports, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, they're not the last foster family to go through an investigation, and they're definitely not the first foster family to go through an investigation. And so there's others out there that may provide just security and reassurance that everything's going to be okay.
Definitely. I'm just going to let everyone know that we're about halfway through with this discussion panel. So I'm going to go ahead and few more questions, and if you want to get your questions into us, again, send through hashtag adopt. That's T as in Tom, adopt. Or you can use the Q&A channel that is on this platform. So my what? Are you guys getting an echo?
Yes.
Double
Yes,
talking.
a little funky.
Wonder why we're double talking.
It's better now for me, anyway.
Is it?
Mm-hmm.
All right. What, in your opinion, is the most important thing a caregiver should do when they discover they're being investigated?
I think if they have access to a sorry, I'm now too. I think if they have access to an advocate to utilize their advocate and get their advocate on board right away. Sometimes has an advocate is kind of frustrating when we come at the end because then we have to backtrack and do a lot of extra work when we could have helped guide it in the right direction.
I think Shireen mentioned something earlier that was helpful, just the idea that, you know, when you get emotional and you respond emotionally, then it's hard to be logical, and this is something you definitely want to kind of slow down and not be reactive and kind of be calm through, for sure. Reach out.
Rachel, do you have anything to add?
I can barely hear because of the echo.
Okay.
What was the question?
I'm not sure why I'm still not. Give me one second. What's the most important thing a caregiver should do when they discover they're being investigated?
Just to make sure you said what's the most important thing a caregiver can do when they're being investigated?
Correct.
Okay. Just being open. That's the biggest thing. And just making sure that your documentation is on point. That's going to be the biggest thing. Is that. Sorry, the echo keeps throwing me off. But those are going to be probably the biggest keys and the things that you can influence the most.
I don't know what's there. The funny part is you guys all saw us. We were on here half an hour beforehand making sure everything worked. Beautifully for half an hour. The last question that I have, so we know that sometimes the investigation is started from allegations from a kiddo. I guess it could be from a bio parent also. A lot of times the kids. Should the relationship with the child and the caregiver change in some way after the investigation starts?
What was the last part of that?
Should the relationship with the child and the caregiver change in some way after the allegations have been made?
I think in some way it may have to, depending on what the allegations are. I mean, the allegation may bring up a trauma that the foster parent wasn't aware of. And may have to take precautions to basically continue to protect that child in a different way. Where it may, but if changing your relationship with the child would be detrimental. It's almost like it needs to be a case by case and an allegation by allegation situation.
I could see that being a case by case situation.
More than anything else, I do see allegations from kiddos towards foster parents creating a situation of disruption more often than not. And as someone who's worked with foster parents for 10 plus years, I understand it and I empathize with the situation for the foster parents. Again, thinking case by case, there's definitely some situations where I wish I could be more effective in helping foster parents see the children making allegations as they see their other trauma-driven behaviors through that trauma lens, understanding it is a behavior driven by a lot of emotion, confusion, all that underlying stuff. We always, use the iceberg example to explain, there's the behavior above and all the stuff that's driving the behavior underneath. Pursuing training and really working closely with counselors and therapeutic staff to try and understand what needs a child was getting met when the allegations, are kind of coming out of left field or are not based in reality or truth, could be an important way to salvage relationships if it's appropriate, if the team decides that would be appropriate.
Wow, I don't know how you got good sound either. You're special.
You guys all sound pretty good to me.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Well, good. Rachel, did you have anything that you wanted to add with that question, or if not, I'm going to move on to our Q&A part.
We can go on to the Q&A. They covered it very well, from what I could hear at least.
Okay, and I do have a few questions. I will reiterate. If you're wanting your questions in, go ahead and use the email, and we will answer your questions. Also, you can add a tweet or Facebook us. Just use the hashtag Tom adopt. And here. Okay, so this one, it's interesting because we've been talking a lot about allegation from a kiddo being a parent. This person says false allegations in our home were made against our teenage son. I feel so guilty because I feel like my husband and I brought this on him by starting the foster care process. What should we do to get him through this? So it's not even for them, it's about your son, what it means to be for him.
That's not a common, but it's also not an uncommon situation. My heart goes out to that family. That is a tough situation to be in. Not only do I work closely with foster families that have their own biological children in their home, but I work with a lot of foster parents who grew up in homes where their parents fostered, and they're folks of great character, and their experiences led to, grew some pretty great people. So I can see where there's going to be benefits in, maintaining, a close, healthy relationship with your son and supporting, approaching it as a team. this is a decision we made to foster as a team, and it's a decision. It's something we will get through, and providing some of that normalization for him that this is something foster families go through. It's not anything he's bearing alone, or even take that burden off of him and take it on as the foster parents. We are the foster parents. We are the foster home, and just having that close, open relationship, making it a safe environment for him to talk about, ask questions about, and then encouraging him all along the way, and just approach it like you do challenging situations that our kids go through all through life. Just be positive. I think the stuff that comes into our home often is only as big of a deal as we make it. So if you are responding in a way that, oh, we're freaking out and this is awful, and then he's going to take it as, oh my God, I should be freaking out. This is awful. So that's that would be my advice to the foster family.
Well, I know that's something. Our household has worked on a lot.
Go ahead, Darren.
Oh, I was just going to say, we have to work on that a lot. Not overreact to things when things get rough. In the team part, that's huge.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Shireen.
That's what I would say. It's a team effort. And the team has to decide if it's something that they want to continue doing after the investigation, and how the family is going to help each other kind of get through the investigation. Depending on the age of the child that the allegations against, they may not have the best resources to help them. I mean, if they're 12, they may not be able to attend classes as like us foster parents can. So I think just finding the help that the child needs, depending on their age, will help them also realize, what is going on, and that it's not. I mean, if it's a false allegation, it's not. It's trauma driven. It is trauma driven. It's not.
Whoops.
Malicious.
It's not. I said it's trauma driven. It's not driven from any other factor.
Right. And if we don't have anything else to add on that one, I'm going to move on. That was a good answer, you guys.
I would say too, just to make sure that your son doesn't feel isolated. If a safety plan does prohibit a few things that provide normalcy for him, I would encourage to kind of think about ways that he can still have some of those interests and needs fulfilled without necessarily utilizing whatever it is. For example, if he's a avid Boy Scouter, that's probably not correct. But if he's in Boy Scouts and he really enjoys being outdoors, then definitely making sure that a approved adult goes with him still and is able to do that. And that way he not only has a safe place to continue practicing those things that give him support, but also giving him the opportunity to reach out to another trusted adult and to talk about the whatever. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Suddenly it all cut out. But so he can also talk and not feel like he's just kind of being shut up and alone in all this within the family. Did I freeze?
Nope, you're good now.
Okay. I was probably making a crazy face. But just different things like that. Another example is like sports, just making sure that they're still getting that outlet somewhere, even if they can't participate in that team or something to that effect like they normally get to, just making sure they still have access to those coping skills.
Appreciate it, you guys. I wasn't expecting, I hadn't thought about that incident, I guess. I know it occurs, but I just hadn't thought about, my mind wasn't there. Okay, let's see. I know disrupting a foster placement does all kinds of harm to a child. After going through a stressful investigation, though, we don't know if we can keep doing this. We don't want our foster daughter to fail in life either. Is it okay to disrupt?
I think it's certainly perfectly fine to disrupt. I think every family knows their limits and they know what they can handle. I think guilt can come with disruption, and that's kind of rough as foster parents because they teach and takes the foster child back 6 months. But ultimately, if you're stressed and your environment is becoming toxic, I fully believe that's doing more harm than what the disruption would do. And so I think if it's an emotional situation and you just need to take a break, where like in Tennessee we call it respite. So if you need to take a break like a respite, I think that's probably your best choice. But ultimately, if you need to do a disruption, you need to do a disrupt choice for your family.
Especially if it's a situation where for your family it's becoming unsafe. I definitely do think that that's something that's not a bad thing. And that doesn't make you a bad foster parent, and it doesn't mean that you gave up. That just means that that child is in a place where they need help. And maybe the help that you can give is not what they need right now. Maybe that's the level that they'll need later down the road, but maybe right now at this time frame where things are escalated, and if you're using up those respite days as soon as you get them because it's that bad, then it's probably better for everybody involved just because it's that stressful of a situation to move forward so that maybe a placement can be found that does have those needs, whether that is going on to a residential care temporarily for a while or going to another foster home that's going to have more supports in place because of its level or something to that effect.
Everything Rachel and Shireen said is absolutely true, and I'm not undermining it at all. I'm going to provide some thoughts on the other side of the coin. I have worked with families that have survived allegations brought on by the kiddos, and I would kind of encourage all foster families, regardless of the reason considering a disruption, to not make the decision emotionally, and work closely with your team. Hopefully you have some good workers, some good staff, and support, a good therapeutic team around you that can, understand, what the details of the case were and help you come to that conclusion. We have come to the conclusion before with the family that it would be best for everyone for the disruption. And then we've also encouraged families to, I think this might be something that you're going through that's temporary or situational and you'll get through it. Like Shireen said, take advantage of those breaks and see if you can get some clarity and step out from the situation for a little bit and see if there's any chance or opportunity to salvage it. I would never want to talk anyone out of disruption if it was the best thing for the family, and I wouldn't want anyone to live in a toxic environment. But just providing some thoughts on the other side of the coin, that it is possible to survive those allegations and not to make decisions emotionally when it's possible and reasonable.
Rachel, are you going to say something? You look like you're getting ready to... You're getting close.
Sorry, I was readjusting.
Okay. Yeah, I actually appreciate both sides, both views there, you guys. The next question that we have is lost on me. We had allegations brought against our house. How should we deal with the embarrassment? Even though the incident was cleared in our favor, our neighbors, we feel, still got a good show, complete with the agency removed all the kids from the homes. I don't know if they think their neighbors saw the kids be removed from the home or... but anyways, the question is, how should we deal with the embarrassment?
Good humor and a good support system. I definitely let my foster parents know, don't go into foster parenting thinking you're going to be viewed as Mother Teresa. I mean, there's a lot of judgment that comes with being a foster family, an adoptive family, a blended family, so kind of taking it in stride and just knowing who you are and knowing why you got into it and what you're about, kind of like the blinders again. Put those blinders on and don't let it discourage you from the reasons you got into it, and know yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I think as a foster parent, I think there's plenty of opportunities for us to be embarrassed. I mean, trauma behaviors come in all shapes and sizes, and they can come out in all shapes and sizes, even when you're doing your average grocery shopping in the local store. So it's if they saw the children leave, unless you're not in, like, you're not of like the Tennessee area, everything's done really confidential. So it's not like this big scene to where like my neighbors wouldn't have any idea what was going on. I joke with my neighbors. I say, you may see, but that doesn't mean we kidnap them. And so just kind of have that open relationship with your neighbors, that your foster parents, and yes, there's been cop cars that showed up to my house, and the neighbors really didn't think anything of it. They were actually dropping kids off, but my neighbors have just gotten used to people coming in and out of our house and kids being dropped off and picked up. So I think during an investigation, we may think that all of our neighbors know what's going on, and that we may be but
It's a mixtape.
That's what it sounds like.
I know, that's what I was gonna say.
Somebody start beatboxing.
Hey, Shreen, I think you froze up on us. I was gonna say too, like, what I'm hearing you say too is that I tend to think that people know more about what's going on than what they really do. And unless I feel like too, unless you want to disclose what went on, your neighbors maybe don't necessarily know what's going on.
One of my favorite lines of foster parents is, "That's interesting. You heard that."
Right.
That they're gonna ask, or to say, to a foster parent that, like if they're asking questions, if they're being nosy, I can't tell you because that wouldn't be fair to the kids in their case. Just kind of answering everything with that. Well, that's interesting. You heard that. It doesn't deny, confirm.
That's good. I like that. Let me go on to I'm going to take 2 more questions here, and then we're going to wrap up. My husband and I want to become foster parents, but it's issues like this that make us hesitant. Is this something that happens often?
I wouldn't say it happens often. It's definitely a case-by-case situation, and it's very much going to depend on the kiddos in your home and what they've, I don't know what just happened, what they've gone through and everything else, but it's something that will at least happen once at some point, most likely. But it's just one of those things, even though it doesn't happen like all the time, it's one of those things just to be prepared for. It's like being prepared for a house fire. Hopefully that won't happen, but there's so many opportunities for that to occur because of all the electronics we keep in our homes and stuff like that. So it's not so much a thing of, all right, everybody hunker down and get ready. It's more of just being prepared and being realistic about it and just being ready for if it does happen, and knowing, I'm trying to think of how to word it, just knowing how you should proceed and knowing what's going to be best for your family and how to move forward.
And just like everything in foster care, it's a process. Understanding that it doesn't have to be this big, scary, well, I like Rachel's example of like a house fire, but it doesn't have to be this big, scary house fire. It doesn't have to burn the house down. You know, it's just another process. You can go about life. You can continue to, you know, take good care of the kids, and you just ride out the process as it goes. You know, it doesn't have to be full of anxiety and fear and stress. If you are doing what you're supposed to as a foster parent, if you're working closely with your agency and being open, then you don't have to worry about, not you don't have to worry about, but there doesn't have to be as much anxiety in it, and you can, you know, trust those around you and have some faith in the system at times.
Oh, I lost Shereen. What do you see? We're talking. There's so much with fear and scare. What makes this so scary for people? What do you think is the big fear factor here?
I think the biggest fear factor is just not knowing what's going to happen, and I think that's the biggest thing. And I think too, just where people's perceptions of things like this are mostly pulled from things like Law and Order, where you have some big scary guys coming in and, like, you know, roughing people up and stuff like that. And even though we all know that that's Hollywood, just having images like that in people's heads, and just because they don't know what that process is, I think that's what scares people the most. And when I talk to foster parents that are kind of asking about it, that's kind of not all the time like necessarily that extreme, but that's kind of towards the end of the spectrum where they kind of think it might go, and part of why they think it might be scary, as well as just other fears like what could happen after, or if it is the major house fire as opposed to the small stove fire, if you're going to go with that analogy, if it's the big house fire, what's going to happen to everybody else in my household and things like that, because they see in shows like that where, you know, kids are getting hauled out in the street and into squad cars and things like that. And I think that's a lot of it.
Okay, I have one last question here for you guys, and it is, I have a friend that is being investigated. She seemed to think that the investigator already had their mind made up to side with the child. Can she request a new investigator to take over the situation? So I guess it's a CPS investigator? I have no clue.
I haven't heard of that being an option. You would want to talk to a first you could talk to the supervisor. First try to address it with the investigator. You know, I would let them know what your concerns are and do it in a way that isn't detrimental to the relationship. Try to be cooperative, and just let them know what your concerns are. And if you don't feel like that gets you anywhere, then go to the supervisor of that worker. I know in all, you know, state offices, that's a common kind of approach to solutions. And then from that point, you can talk to what is the grievance procedure, what is the process, is this an option or an opportunity? I know here in Tennessee we have great investigators. I mean, in all of our DCS, they are some of the most reasonable, rational folks, and they're great to work with. So I think that dispels a lot of fear in some of our foster parents, is just knowing how competent and great they are to work with.
I agree. I've had very good experiences with any investigators I've come in contact with, or anything else, and I feel like they've been very fair and very knowledgeable. And I do feel like that they've made it clear like who the supervisors are involved for if there was a concern. So I feel like that's been pretty well communicated so far in my experiences, at least in Tennessee.
Well, and I don't know this person, and so I don't know more of the situation, but I'm almost thinking it sounds like the fear is speaking to them, where it's a them versus us situation almost, where it's, hey, you've already sided with the kid, you're supposed to be on, or there are already sides, when I think, like you guys have been talking about, it's a process, so they're just a part of the they're a part of the team that's working through the process. So being honest with them and just even saying, hey, it seems I'm thinking this. It seems like this. Dispel this for me. I don't know. It just seems like they need to work like they're all on the same team, because it seems like fear's creeping in there a little bit and it'll mess things up. I don't know.
Right, and it's important to remember too, it's not a snap decision usually either. I mean, Megan, you probably remember the exact, is it 30 or 60 days typically those take to process? I can't remember.
60.
60, so it's almost 2 months. So there's probably going to be more than one interview, and that might help put your mind at ease a little bit, that it's not just all based off of one interview, one interaction. It's like Darren said, and Megan both, it's a process, and there are going to be a lot more people involved also, and along the way too, there will be lots of meetings to discuss it.
Fantastic. Well, that's all we're going to have time for, because I think we're going to go over if we take any more. So I just want to thank everyone again for joining us for another discussion panel. Again, next month is going to be August 19th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to have another group of experts, and it's going to be an open Q&A, so there is no designated topic. And then coming up in September, we're going to be talking about how do you go forward with parenting when partners disagree on parenting. So we're going to be doing that in September. Thank you for joining us, Megan and Rachel and Shireen, wherever you happen to. Thank you for joining us and being a part of this. And remember to follow us on Facebook and our YouTube channel. We hope this has helped you to nurture and grow your foster and adopted family.
Thanks.